What instructions have you gotten? Did they sound crazy so you ignored them? Were they unappealing so you keep asking the same question thinking if you keep asking you'll get a different answer? Did it sound too easy so you decided to add a little something to it? A personal favorite of mine, because if you know source like I do, you know God has a wild sense of humor. Did you get something vague? Remember the propitiate episode in season 3, episode 11? A lot of us fail to realize we're living in answered prayers because we don't like the answers. Some of us don't believe we're living in answered prayers because we don't see how our additions or subtractions changed the blessing. Passion public service announcement. Passionate. Let me tell you something.
So what is this Passion PSA podcast? Who am I? Well, they call me Passion, short for passion no last necessary. Why is there no last name necessary? Because the first name says it all. I am passion and all that embodies. What do I do here? I give you the life coaching that you know you need, but don't enroll yourself in. When did I start? Actually, 2017. I'd leave a PSA on my Instagram regarding something I'd observed, and now we've evolved to this. Why do I do it? Why not? If even one person is able to take away one thing that changes their life, someone else's life, or changes the world for the better, then I've done what I was charged to do. So come on in, sit and listen for a while. There's something here for everyone at the Passion PSA podcast.
Greetings and salutations, my beloved Passionists, newcomers, visitors, and guests. Welcome to another episode of the Passion PSA podcast, where I, passion no last necessary, your get you right guru, issue a weekly public service announcement about whatever I have observed or was on my mind. This is a for your consideration zone where the objective is to offer you a perspective you may not have previously considered to A, expand your thinking, and B, aid you in becoming a better version of yourself, and for others. This is a safe space, but not necessarily a delicate one. I will never rob you of your right to feel what you feel. Same way I will not sugarcoat the truth to make it more palatable. The goal is to get you to higher, more expanded thinking so you can operate as your highest and best self. If you're new here, affirmations are our first order of business before we get into it so that we intentionally raise the vibration and ensure that no matter what I say and how it may make you feel, that we have started on the highest possible vibration and the same frequency. So if you are ready, go ahead, take a deep breath. You are always welcome to repeat after me or to use this time to state your own affirmations. I listen for comprehension. I seek source for guidance and direction. I heed the instructions and directions source gives me. I trust the process. I accept my place. I am learning and growing. As I learn and grow, I apply. What a privilege to be me right here, right now. Gratitude. Ashe, ashe, ashe. Passionists, you ever played a telephone game? Okay, for those of you who've never played it, one person whispers a message to the next person in the line. The message is repeated over and over until it reaches the last person in the line, who then has to share the message they received with the group. The objective is to see if the message makes it to the end of the line intact. Now, I've played this game 1,000 times, and I've never seen the message make it to the end successfully, unless the group is very small, and even then, it's hit or miss. With a larger group, it's always interesting to see where the breakdown in communication was, especially because it's often within the first 2 or 3 receivers, and then it's all downhill from there. What brought this to mind was being in an environment where someone was trying to obtain information. The person they were speaking to didn't know the answer. Now, the simple and probably best thing to do would have been to hand the conversation off to the person who had the answers and could give context and clarity for any other questions that may have come up. Instead, the person decided to be the go-between. There are times when being a go-between is a good or necessary idea, but there's also a reason "don't shoot the messenger" is still an active colloquialism. If the situation calls for mediation, by all means, be the middleman. If the person with the information absolutely can't field the call themselves, so they need you to relay the information, again, your services will probably be appreciated. Here's the thing. When you're in the middleman position, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, relaying information exactly as you receive it could be critical to how things are done from there. So middleman, in this instance, is a volunteer. They could have handed the information seeker over to the person with the answers, but they chose to stay in the middle. And that was fine. Where it took a turn was when they went off script. Seeker asks a question, responder says, tell them X, and middleman decides they want to put it into their own words. And that's something that you're taught in school, right? When you're doing a research paper, you need to put it in your own words. Otherwise, it's plagiarism. But when someone tells you to say this, often there's a reason why. Middlemen put responders' reply into their own words, only the words they decided to substitute in weren't synonymous with the words responder used. As a result, the message they relayed to seeker was inaccurate. Similar situation with an actor I knew. They would never memorize the script as written, if at all. Now, I don't know if they felt like they were adding depth to their character by changing the words, or if they were just having challenges with their recall. But what was on the page and what came out of their mouth was rarely to never an exact match. Depending on the writer or director, that can be disastrous. And if you're an aspiring actor, this note is for you especially. Unless you've been given permission to adjust the script, memorize the lines as they are written. Do not change them to what you think they should be. You don't ever want to be in a rehearsal where the director asks you, do you not like what I wrote? Do you think it should have been done differently? Don't edit my script. Deliver it as I wrote it. I've been in that rehearsal, friends, okay? The director was annoyed, the actor was embarrassed, and the rest of us were speechless and just doing our due diligence to make sure we didn't get shaded down next. Again, there is room for license and going a little off script, provided everyone that needs to be on board with it is. But when you go too far off script, you run into the possibility of the intended message not being delivered, or you throw off the person who has to respond to you. It's like the person that says, how are you? And then they don't know what to say when you actually answer the question with what you're really feeling, instead of giving a robo response of fine or just echoing the question. Going off script can derail the whole show. While middleman didn't derail the show for responder, they definitely set seeker up for failure. And because middleman has a haughty spirit, responder didn't even bother to fight because responder knew that middleman's pridefulness wouldn't accept that they were wrong. You know, the people that say, well, it's the same thing, because it's easier to shrug it off than actually find out why it is, in fact, not the same thing. Middleman. So fast forward just the other day, I'm in the kitchen and I don't even remember what led me to this, but recently I've been thinking a lot about answered prayers. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about answered prayers next week too. So put a bookmark right here. But I thought about the prayers that I've prayed and supplications I've made. I thought about things I've wished for, hoped for, cried for, and even been willing to die for. I thought about how often the prayer was, show me what to do, or tell me what to do. And the answer was provided to me very distinctly and directly. Do X, Y, then Z. And instead of doing exactly what I was told, I did Z, X, Y. I did X, something Y adjacent, and Z. I did X and Z and eliminated Y. The prayer was show me or tell me. The answer was, okay, do this. And my follow-up was something along the lines of, but not what I was directed to do. I went off script and then wondered why I didn't get the desired results. I was watching a Social Proof podcast, and it was an episode that David Shands did with just him and a guest. I forget the guest's name, but I believe he was flourishing in the government contract space. I could be wrong, but I don't remember. Point is, he was talking about the success rates of some of his students. Now, if you've ever paid attention to an infomercial, there's always a part where the voiceover artist states quickly and in a lower tone than any of the non-critical and the lowest of the most critical information. Results aren't typical. Results vary. These results are not average. this guest wasn't saying this, but he said something to the effect of, my results are proven. I have people graduating from my program doing these numbers out the gate. Then he said, and this is what resonated with me like a church bell, if you're not getting results, it's because you're not following the recipe. He said people come in and try to put their own spin on things. They don't do these things. They substitute other things, or they add in things I didn't tell them. He said, I'm not responsible for those results. If you follow my recipe, you'll get the correct dish every time. And those other ones, I don't know what they're over there making, but that has nothing to do with me. He said people don't believe it's as simple as it is, so they start adding stuff to it, and then they try to blame him for the results they got doing what they'd chosen to do instead of doing what he'd told them to do. Passionates. Here's where we circle back to playing telephone. Somewhere between the received message and the actions you took, there was a breakdown in communication. The humble part of you was the seeker calling and asking for direction. Responder said, do this, this, and this. Your ego decided to play middleman and interpret what responder meant instead of acting on what responder said. Having acted on an unnecessary interpretation because the instructions were clear, so there was no need to interpret it, you're now questioning responder's ability to deliver because you thought responder needed help. I remember, and I know I'm probably going to sound crazy to people who are not familiar with this, but you're going to be all right. But I remember coming home from a watch night service one year. Now, if you don't know what watch night is, it's the service held around 9 or 10 p.m. until midnight on New Year's Eve in most black churches to ring in the new year, okay? It was brick that night. I was trying to figure out how to get home the fastest way, and I think I walked to the train, which is about a mile away. Nice little 20-minute plus walk. Now, it's after midnight on New Year's Eve, so I'm not particularly worried about it being unsafe because people are outside, but it is straight up Arctic. I get to the train station, I get the train, but the train is only going on 180th Street. And at 180th Street, now, remember we talked about this same train station in episode 3 of this season. I'm going to have to wait for the next train that'll take me the rest of the way to my stop, and then I'll have another 15-minute or so walk to get home. But it beats standing still, waiting for a bus and all that comes along with that leg of the journey. So I'm standing at 180th, I'm waiting for the train, and it is taking eternity to come. I'm very sensitive to cold, and it is absolutely freezing. I know if I'm out there much longer, I'm going to get frostbite. I decide to pray. So I'm like, Lord, please tell me what to do, because it is bleeding out here. And at this rate, I'm not going to make it home because the frostbite is starting to set in. Y'all, I never heard a response so clearly in all my life. I distinctly heard, oh, now you want to talk to me? There was some more scolding and some justifying on my part. And for those of you who've never had this kind of relationship with Source, again, I know that I might sound crazy. Doubt me if you so choose, but this is my true account. So anyway, at the end of the reprimand was clear instruction to take the train past the stop where I would catch the bus to the stop where I would walk home and then walk. I'm like, okay, God, you bugging. It's dumb cold. And I'm already like 15 minutes from an emergency room visit. And now you're telling me to walk? Like, I can barely stand at this point, and the train is nowhere in sight. So, you know when you tell a child to do something and they stand there trying to tell you some nothing, so you repeat yourself extra loud like there's a bullhorn in your throat because surely their hearing must be failing. Why you would need to repeat yourself. Well, Passionates, that's exactly what came next, okay? I got the same message again, just louder and more obnoxious. Take the train to this stop and walk. I didn't like that answer at all. I didn't like the message. I didn't like the delivery. I didn't like any part of it. But I listened. Now, keep in mind that I've had first-degree frostbite before, okay? And when I came in the house, my mother had to warm my feet for like 30 minutes to an hour to get me back mobile. So Source telling me to trudge home was absolutely absurd. I did it, though. When I got off the train and started walking home, I was in pain and every step hurt. By the time I got home, my feet felt like I had been inside with my feet cozily wrapped in fuzzy socks and a microfiber blanket. Now, I couldn't understand it, and if I didn't experience it, I wouldn't believe it because, like I said, my lived experience showed me otherwise on many an occasion to the point of needing medical assistance. When I followed the instructions exactly as they were given, even though they were absolutely crazy, I got results better than anything I could have imagined. What instructions have you gotten? Did they sound crazy so you ignored them? Were they unappealing so you keep asking the same question thinking if you keep asking you'll get a different answer? Did it sound too easy so you decided to add a little something to it? A personal favorite of mine, because if you know Source like I do, you know God has a wild sense of humor. Did you get something vague? Remember the propitiate episode in season 3, episode 11? A lot of us fail to realize we're living in answered prayers because we don't like the answers. Some of us don't believe we're living in answered prayers because we don't see how our additions or subtractions changed the blessing. But if the recipe calls for this ingredient and we don't have it, don't like it, or for whatever other reason don't use it, we're not making the recipe. We're making a modified version of the recipe, and as such, we'll get a modified result. That's not a Source issue. That's an us issue. So just like we talked about in the documentary, there are times when we're saying, all in God's time, or it wasn't in God's plan. That's false, beloved. It wasn't God's plan, and God's timing was right when you asked for it. But you did what you felt like doing. You stayed at the job when God told you to leave because you thought money being tight for a few months was a bad idea. But if you would have left then, you could have been on Easy Street a few months back. And for those times when you prayed and got no answer, half of those times the answer was an eye roll and a trouble. You waiting on the Lord whole time, the Lord waiting on you to stop playing fool and stop asking stupid questions. You're not happy in the relationship and you're asking God if you should stay here and stay miserable. Beloved, it has been my experience directly and with others that when God wants you to stay somewhere you don't want to be, you'll get clear instruction on that. Now that instruction might simply be wait, which is super whack because ain't nobody trying to wait until an unidentified appointed time. That doesn't feel safe or secure. Despite how unsexy and non-specific that answer may be, it's still a clear direction. So I submit to you these final thoughts, passionates. If any or all of this made me sound like a kook and you think I'm just out here just having auditory hallucinations, that's entirely possible. But if you believe that, you have to ask yourself, why is it that me listening to these hallucinations is yielding way better results than following my own free will? Passion point number 1. Pray for discernment and pray for the strength and courage to heed and execute on what your discernment is telling you. And that strength and that courage is going to be critical because discernment will be granted to you and you will hear a word and have no question that it is coming straight from the throne of grace. But definitely feel like the message got garbled before it reached you because Source could not possibly be telling you to do that. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. Passion point number 2. If you want it to turn out the way the chef made it, you have to follow the recipe the way the chef gave it. Okay? Variations, moderations, alterations will give you a final dish, but not the dish the chef created. Passion point number 3, when it comes to vocabulary, it's not the same thing. All words are not synonymous or interchangeable. And I challenge you to start looking up some of the words that are in your vocabulary currently and verify if what you've been thinking they mean is accurate. I feel like we've talked about this before. People decorating their sentences with advanced vocabulary only to make themselves look like they're trying too hard or make themselves sound stupid. And no, that's not nice. And no, that's not encouraging or edifying. That's the truth, and the truth is irrefutable. When you're talking to someone who doesn't know the difference, they're listening for context clues so they don't have to feel unsmart. But when you're talking to someone who does know the difference, they're listening and questioning your intelligence. You could be mad at me all you want. I'm just telling you what's happening in their heads so you know the real. Passion point number 4, everything does not require a middleman. Even if you like to be in the mix of everything, you can be in the mix without inserting yourself in the middle. You learn more when you can sit back and observe, and that's even for tactile and kinesthetic learners. Yes, you feel the connect when your hands are on it and you get to interact with it, but that opportunity to hear it or watch it first lays the foundation. Then being able to interact with it, that's going to reinforce the information that you've been given, okay? Passion point number 5, everything does not require interpretation. Visual art, dance routines, hieroglyphics, yes. Sign language, yes. If it's not a research paper where you're determining and deciphering what the author you're citing intended to relay, just relay the message as it was given to you. This is subpoint to number 5. It's easier to relay information that we comprehend, right? If seeker and responder have a certain relationship, there are certain things that seeker will know immediately upon hearing and know exactly who said it. You changing it to fit your comprehension so it makes sense to you changes the dynamic. You wanted to understand because of your position in the conversation, but here's the thing. No one was talking to you. They were merely talking to each other through you, and there's a difference. Last passion point. If you want the blessing, get out of God's way trying to do everything but what you're told, and get out of your own way trying to make the directions fit your vision. Your desired result might be whack compared to what God has for you, but you busy trying to wrestle to get your little piece of whackness. Stop that. Now, passionates, always know that I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you. As I work on getting myself right, I strive to get you right in the process. Better together. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or commendations, drop them in the comment section. If you're a person of few words, drop me some megaphones if you got some value from this, okay? If you have something to say and you want to remain anonymous, send a listener letter to mybrilliantfriendpassion@gmail.com. Hit like and subscribe before you go support any other channels or any other platforms, please and thank you, okay? Your views, your likes, your comments, your subscriptions, and your shares help the algorithm know that I'm here with something worthwhile to say. Your shares help me help others help themselves. Your financial contributions help me keep this business afloat, and they are welcomed and valued. You can make donations via Linktree, Zelle, PayPal, or Podbean. Every little bit helps. It all goes back into the pod. That's it, and that's all, passionates. You Get You Right Guru is signing off. Y'all go forth. Be great. Be filled with bliss. Be armed and empowered with knowledge. Refer back to your passion points. Be humble. And don't ever think that any of these PSAs are for somebody else you know. I'm talking to you to get you right so no one else has to. When this goes up, it'll be my birthday, my personal new year, my solar return, my born day, my me day. Gratitude for another year. Gratitude that you're still here. I love you, passionates. In all things, be passionate. See you later.